Me live now, Congressman James Clyburn of South Carolina was reelected just yesterday by his Democratic colleagues as Assistant Democratic Leader in the House. Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me.
I know that you said after the midterms there was time for some soul searching and that you would do a lot of soul searching along with the party, quite honestly. But I want to ask you about something that our first read team noted today, in that the leadership after the vote yesterday and the decisions were made, the top leaders within the House Democrats remains the same, and they ask, is that then real change and reflection? How do you answer that?
I answer it this way. There must always be a balance in all that you do. We need experience in our leadership. We need fresh new ideas in our leadership. We don't throw out one for the other. We can expand the leadership as Leader Pelosi did, bring in younger people. We can learn from them. They can learn from us. Because I'll tell you something. I asked someone who asked me that question earlier. Tell me, as progressive, would you rather have a 74-year-old Thurgood Marshall or 34-year-old Clarence Thomas? It all depends upon how you view the world. In our caucus, they would take a 74-year-old Thurgood Marshall any time.
Well, that's interesting you saying how one would view the world. You saw the vote last night in the Senate. Many within your party had hoped that it would perhaps give Senator Mary Landrieu an edge in this runoff that she has in Louisiana. Our first read team notes this as well. Mary Landrieu is the last Senate Democrat left standing in the Deep South. They write, indeed, here's a look at how the political representation has changed in the entire South since the 1960s, and they go through the 110th Congress, 5 Democrats, 17 GOPers. They're looking at the stats. Bottom line here, the bottom line here is she's the last Senate Democrat left standing in the Deep South.
That's not quite true. Senator Nelson is down in Florida. Last time I checked, he was still a Democrat. And I really consider the capital of the Confederacy, Virginia, as being the Deep South. I don't know why anybody would think otherwise. And we still have 2 Democrats there in Virginia. And so I do believe, I get your point, that things are, in fact, shifting in the South. But let me say this. I believe it's important for us as Democrats to accept the results of this vote as a wake-up call, for us to take stock of who and what we are, for us to stop apologizing for being Democrats. The Democratic Party gave us Social Security, gave us Medicaid, Medicare, gave us the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65, Housing Law of '68, made outlaw discrimination in the public sector in 1972. This party is a party of progressive ideas. It's a party of young people. It is this party that's making it possible for young people to get affordable health care and affordable educations. We are the party of middle-income America, and we ought to stop apologizing for being that, because that's what the core of this party is all about.
But you are also the party that saw a slight dip with the Hispanic vote in the midterm elections. We know that the president is expected here soon to announce executive action on immigration reform. Do you feel confident in what you've heard, and I'm sure some details behind the scenes, that the president is looking in the right direction in whatever he ultimately unveils, perhaps even sometime this week?
Absolutely. I've been advocating for a long time that the president use the executive order to get things done. That has always been the history of the presidency in this country. Abraham Lincoln is remembered for the Emancipation Proclamation. That was an executive order. Harry Truman is revered for integrating the armed services. That was an executive order. I think that President Obama ought to take, put himself alongside these great, one Republican, one Democrat, but great presidents, and use the executive order to do something big on immigration, and let the courts decide whether or not it's constitutional. That's not for the Congress to decide. That's why we have courts to make that decision. The Emancipation Proclamation stood time, and so did integrating the armed services.
Congressman James Clyburn, thank you so much for your time, sir. It's always great to have your insight on our show. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.